Hey everyone, my name is Sean Arnold and this is my max DPS build for Aurora in Paragon. My max DPS has been calculated using Sylphan's Optimal DPS Calculator and Stat Optimizer. If you've never heard of Sylphan, please go check out his YouTube channel, youtube.com/Sylphan. The links to his channel are in the description of this video, as he's a very clever dude and created a DPS calculator for you to use in this game in order to calculate the most efficient way to run your characters as you're playing. This is relevant as of version 39.2 in Paragon, and if it ever gets changed or the damage parameters get changed for this character in the future, I will make a different build, but so far I've been seeing a lot of success with Aurora. So before I get into the build itself, just quickly a little bit about Aurora. Aurora is a character a lot like Greystone in that she is reliant on her basic attack for damage dealing, but as well as her abilities also for pushing lanes and being effective in team fights. Now Aurora is mostly known as a walking talking ultimate. Her ultimate is one of the best ultimates in the game, and therefore this build focuses on building as much damage as possible for her basic attack, but also trying to get the most out of her abilities as much as you can while still being effective with them in team fights. And so let's get into the build here. The very first card you want to get is a dummy ward. A dummy ward is a card which you don't really keep into your hand. It's something you buy as soon as you land into Paragon or into, I forgot the name of the world, Monolith. As soon as you land into Monolith, you want to buy a dummy ward where you take this card, you run out into the lane and you put this in a nice spot, then you teleport back and swap it for something else. It's not really that important, it doesn't matter which one you do, it's just so that you have a ward out there ASAP, because you're not going to have one for your first couple of CP. And that is because your next couple of cards are a health potion and a healer token. Aurora is often put into the off lane, which means she will often be against the odds in the early stages of the game. Usually when you're in the off lane, you're against a ranger and a support with them, and therefore they're going to be trying to poke you as much as they can while you try to hide in the tower and protect yourself. Therefore you want a bit of health recovery in order to stay alive. If you do not have a healer token because you're new to the game and therefore have not unlocked this yet, feel free to use anything else which provides health recovery, another health potion or 2 or 3, or bump juice in case if you have that instead. But really anything to recover more health as you go along is really useful, and if you really don't have that, then go for a mana potion instead and recover some mana. That can also be useful, but the health is definitely more useful because you're taking damage quite a little bit here and there. Now once you've built a couple of CP, your first priority as an Aurora player is to start building power. Most of Aurora's damage in her early game is going to come from her ability Hoarfrost. Not necessarily her basic attack, because her basic attack doesn't scale as well as say a ranger's does. It scales nicely but not really that effective, and so the most you're going to get is through your ability damage, and therefore you want to build as much power as you can in the early game. 15 CP worth of power is my magic figure. Once you have about that much power, your character becomes online and you're ready to participate in team fights and farm effectively in order to get into your end game hand. And so to get that 15 points of power, our first card we're going to get is a Brawler's Ward. You definitely want to have a ward no matter what character you're playing. Wards are so important in the higher meta stages of the game because you can't see your opponent if you don't know where they are. So you definitely want to get a ward card. You can go for Brawler's Ward, which gives you power and mana, and it gives you extra power when you fully upgrade it. Or you can go for a Sage's Ward, which gives you basically the same effects, but instead of the mana it gives you extra health. Up to you really what you want to go for, either or. I chose to go for the mana because you get the extra health here, but it's up to you what you want to choose. Your first card after these two should be the Brawler's Ward, and then fully upgrade it. Then you need 10 more points of damage. This gives you 5. So you want to go through those. The best card to get that out of is Madstone Gem. Madstone Gem gives you 2 points of power when you buy it, and then you can upgrade it with 3 more as you go along, so it gives you 5 each. That gives you up to 15 quite nicely. But if you don't have the Madstone Gem, again, you don't necessarily need to have it. There are good cards early in the game, particularly cards such as Adamant Edge, which gives you power and health, and Staff of Adamant, wherever that card may be, there it is, which gives you mana and power early in the game, and when they're fully upgraded it gives you a nice bit of power too, and this will give you actually more power overall. This will give you 3 points of power because it's a higher costing card, and don't let that worry you. You will take 2 more points to upgrade these cards than these ones, but they're still just as good really, so do not worry too much if you don't have these cards here. Now once your Hoarfrost is online and you've got your ultimate ability out, which you should get quite early on, you're kind of ready to start participating in team fights anytime your ultimate is up. However, we do want to kind of combat some of Aurora's earlier weaknesses, so before we get into the late game hand, we've got a couple of mid game cards which help us along the way here. And the first card which I like to go and get is Thunder Cleaver. This is an epic card, so do not worry if you don't have this. If you don't have this, just get any other kinetic card to increase her attack speed, but this card is really good. This card here increases her cleave damage significantly. I think it changes it from 10% to about 50%, which really helps with clearing out waves of minions and just dashing your way down the lane in order to kind of clear out a wave effectively. Especially when this is fully upgraded, because you also get a extra ability as an active move where you can shockwave your enemies with as much damage as your basic attack to nearby enemies, and it recovers every 20 seconds, which is quite nice. So yeah, no, Thunder Cleaver is a really good card if you have it available to you. If not, just get any kinetic card and increase her attack speed for as cheap as you can. Now, as I kind of alluded to earlier, Aurora is known as a walking, talking ultimate. Her best thing about her is her ultimate attack, and therefore we want something which can kind of reduce her cooldown quite a bit, and therefore we use a Chronomancer disc. I prefer Chronomancer disc than the other one because it gives you mana, but this one gives you mana regen, and in the later games, by about time when you have this card, mana regen is more effective than mana. And you want to buy this for as cheap as you can, so I have this card with 3 points of mana cost in order to upgrade this and get 10% reduction cooldown on my ultimate. And anytime my ultimate is up, I am out there in the field trying to find my jungler, trying to find my carry, and I'm going to tell them my ultimate is ready, freeze an enemy, let them do damage, kill an enemy, and then I'll go back to farming and getting as much CP as I can in order to level up quicker and get more cards. Once I have these two cards in play, I am now ready to really work towards my final build, and the first card I want to get is the Blast Harness, with which gives me a bit of attack speed, and then put in 3 points of minor kinetic in it in order to fully upgrade it. This, when fully upgraded, gives you 100% crit bonus damage boost, which is really quite nice. It doubles your critical damage, and this is how you get closer to those higher numbers of her max DPS 477. From there, you should by now have a full hand, and therefore you're going to start swapping out cards, and we're going to start to swap out the Madstone Gems with some critical damage cards. The first critical damage card I have is Spear of the Rift Hunter. This gives you 1 point of power and 3 points of critical chance, not critical damage, but critical chance when fully upgraded. And you want to kind of max them out as much as possible with, oops, I just deleted that, with 9 points of major wound to make this a 12-point card overall. This gives you, what's that, 4 times, what is it, 9? 4 times 12. 4 times 12 is 36%. No, sorry, that's a fail, terrible. Oh, sorry, 48%. This gives you a 48% boost in critical chance, and therefore you'll start seeing crit hits quite a lot and be able to do a lot more damage. But 48% is not good enough. We want more critical damage, and therefore I now have a micro nuke here. Micro nuke, instead of the 1 point of power here, I have 10 points of critical chance here and 12 points of power in order to balance that out a bit more. And yeah, with the extra 10 points put into critical chance, I then have what? Well, let's go for 3 times 12. 3 times 12 is 36. Plus is 40, so 40% plus the 48%. So we now have a 88% critical chance, which is really quite nice, and that balances out with all the power that we're going to be building along the way as well. And the final card which we're going to go for and end up this build is a Whirling Wand. Whirling Wand, when fully upgraded, gives you 3 points of attack speed and 1 point of power, and then we're going to put in a whopping 10 points of kinetic speed into this one in order to balance out our kinetic speed. Excuse me. I realized I just said that when I've been reading this, I've been saying 1 point and 3 points instead of reading the actual values. The reason why I say this is I count in terms of CP in order to count my build, and if we go through our final hand, we can see what I mean here. So Brawler's Ward has 5 CP worth of power. 1 CP is equivalent to 6 power, so this is 5 CP worth of power, and we want 14 overall. So this is 5 CP. This has another 3 CP, so that's 8 CP. This has 1, so that's 9 CP. This has 1, that's 10 CP. And then we have another 4 here, so that's 14 CP, and that's what we want for our power. Then we want 17 points of attack speed. The blast harness has 4 here, which is 4 CP's worth. And then the whirling one here has 12 as 13 points of attack speed here. 13 plus the 4 here, that's 17 points of attack speed. And the critical strike chance, we have 12 on this card here. That's 12 CP worth, and then 10 on this card here, and that works out to be 22 points of critical strike chance, along with the chronomancer of this, which reduces our cooldown for our ultimate, and also the double damage bonus on the blast harness, which increases us to our max DPS of 477. Hopefully this has been useful to a couple of people and given an idea of how to build Aurora. I will be doing this type of guide for other characters on how to get the maximum damage build for these characters. And yeah, no, if you've enjoyed this video, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Please go check out Sylphid and his work. He hasn't uploaded a lot too recently, but he has got some amazing videos on his channel, so please go check those out. And yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this guide. Thank you for watching and take care.